Hi, welcome back to Book Buzz with Jan and Payne, a podcast where we talk about romance books, our current reads, and we also have the pleasure of sitting down with some of our favorite authors and chatting with them about their amazing books.
Hello, Bookstagrammers. Welcome back to another episode. And I think I want to start off this podcast by saying that if you tune in regularly or every once in a while, then you know that I'm a big angsty new adult sort of trope lover. I love reading books like that. I just love to see a character mature to be this like very fierce, strong, especially the heroine in a book. So I always end up picking up a new adult, always. And if you've been tuning in, you know I'm a huge Jay McLean fan. I remember when I first read Pieces of You, how freaking crazy I was. That anticipation, the wait killed me. And I feel like I talked about it in every single podcast where I was like, I'm ready for book 2. I'm scared for book 2, the way book 1 ended. So it's crazy to think that she's going to be here with us today. Jay has written some of the most unforgettable books that are just filled with so many tears. They're also filled with growth. And it's something that I love to read in a book. I feel, and this is something that I do want to bring up when we're talking to her about how strong her heroines are. And I think that's the reason I love her book so much. It's like her heroines are one of a kind. And it's just, you're growing with them as you read the book. That's how it is. And I love that. I love her books. I absolutely love the Pieces Duet. I will say book 2, I cried from beginning to end. Cried. So it's such an honor to have her with us. So please stick around, sit back, grab some coffee, and we hope you enjoyed today's episode. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's truly an honor. I'm like freaking out. I'm like trying to like not cry because I'm freaking out. But thank you so much, because I feel like I talk about you and your books on every single podcast. So it is truly an honor to have you here. How are you doing today?
I am good. I'm good. I just woke up like half an hour ago, so I'm a little bit but I'm good.
That's good. Okay, so we're just gonna go ahead and dive in right from the start. Can you talk to us a little bit about, for readers that haven't read your books yet, talk to us a little bit about how you got into writing, what pushed you to publish your first book?
Okay, so I have a different story to a lot of other writers. I know a lot of people who grew up reading books and were like, under their bed covers reading with a torch or whatever, a flashlight, trying to sneak in reading time. But I didn't grow up reading. I actually started reading after my second son was born, and I had like postpartum, and I was just trying to find something else to occupy my time that wasn't just, cleaning and cooking. My kids were at the time not even 3 and 1 yet. And I just picked up 50 Shades of Grey because everyone was talking about it. And this was back in like 2013. So I picked up 50 Shades of Grey. And then after that, I think I went to the Thoughtless series by S.C. Stevens. Do you guys know that one? Yeah. So I read that, and I just read a bunch of, I figured out that I liked new adult books. So I read all of that, and then I read Slammed by Colleen Hoover, and that kind of just changed everything for me. And then I thought, I'll just start, I'll try to write my own book. And I had it written. My first book took me 2 weeks to write, and then I had it published 2 weeks after that. And 2013 was a much different time. The market wasn't so flooded with indie books, so it kind of just took off from there. And so I went from not reading anything at all to reading, writing, and then publishing within like 4 months. And that's how it worked for me. Yeah. But that, like I said, that was a different time when you could actually get away with releasing unpublished books with crappy covers and people would still read it. Now it's so hard to get noticed.
So how much world building takes place before you start writing?
My process is different. I come up with characters and their backstory first, and then I kind of play matchmaker with the characters rather than build a world or a plot around those characters. That's why my books are very character driven rather than plot driven. So there's a lot of times where I'll match up different characters and, you know, try to write a quarter of a book with those two characters and their backstories. And if it doesn't work out, then I kind of scrap it and move on to the next character until two characters seem to work better together than anyone else. Yeah.
So how does that work? Like, if you do it like that, do you plot books way in advance then? Or how is it? Like when you did the Preston Brothers series, how did you like go from couple to couple?
So I had the first book, like Luke and Lainey, I had in mind always. And then I was supposed to write Leo after that. Because he's like the second oldest brother. And I tried to write him with two other girls, and one of them was Ava from the 𝐅𝐸𝐥𝐥𝐵 Duet. And another one was this other girl that she still hasn't been fully formulated. But I just couldn't write his story at that time. So I skipped him and moved on to Logan, which is the second book in the series. And him and Aubrey like went together really quickly and easily. So I don't really plot. I don't have a publishing schedule. I don't have a storyline to go with. I kind of just go with whatever comes up in my mind at the time. And yeah, that's basically it.
That's amazing.
I'm like the most disorganized person ever.
But the thing is that I think that's pretty amazing, because your books always, I don't know, like they feel so real. And it's truly, I love it. I love that.
I was just saying, I love writing characters in that age group because they make so many mistakes when you're that young and sort of like feeling emotions for the first time and you don't know what to do with them. Like I love the reality of, you know, people messing up and sort of learning from those mistakes and forgiveness and things like that.
What I'm just gonna say, you're the only author that has made me cry as much as I've cried, and I'm just like screaming at my Kindle, like, "What are you doing?"
Like, I'm sorry, but I'm not.
So I know that you said you started back in 2013. Back, I know bookstagrammers weren't a thing. Now it's like TikTokers, bookstagrammers. They play a big role in you know, pushing books out there.
Massive,
yeah. So what would you tell your younger writing self now? Like, if you would look back, what would you tell your younger writing self about this whole writing journey?
I mean, I don't think I have any advice or regrets. I was sort of just like, I was just writing and amazed that people were reading my books. And it got to a point where, like, I wrote my first and second book, and then about 6 months after I released my first book, I got an email from Amazon Publishing that they wanted to buy the first book. And like, that's a dream for any author. So like, I went from just doing this like part-time, like my husband didn't even know that I'd published a book until it was already out there. And he was like, well, now you got to get a website and you got to do all this. I'm like, it's okay. And then it kind of just took off from there. So I don't really know. That's a good question. I don't really know what I would actually advise myself of. Just to stay humble, but I think I'm pretty good at that. I hope anyway. I just don't want, like, don't let certain amount of success get to your head. But yeah, I don't know, maybe get like a publishing plan before I have a baby so I don't take 2 years off writing. That's probably a big one.
Is there, thinking back now at the books you've written, because you've written so many amazing books, is there one, like your first ones, that you think about and you're like, oh, I should have changed this, or I should have done this different?
My first 2 books, like if I could, I would rewrite the crap out of them. But the first ones are owned by a publisher, so I can't touch it. My second one is like, I can't even read them. And the worst part is that like I'm gonna have to read them because I'm adding to that series. And I'm gonna have to read them, and I know I'm just gonna be like just cringing the entire time, being like, what am I doing? But also it's kind of a good thing because you want your writing to get better every time you write. So the fact that your first couple of books are crap, like that's a good thing. You don't want your first book to be like, this is the best book I've ever written, because then you're not improving, you're not working on your craft, you're not doing anything to improve yourself. So yeah, I would definitely change those 2, at least those 2, definitely. Yeah.
So Jan is always saying that I read this book and I legit cried. She texted me so many times, like, I'm crying so hard right now. So I am really curious, since your books are legit tear jerkers, what's a book that you've read that made you cry?
Oh my God. God, I'm trying to think. There was one, oh, I cannot even remember. I'm really bad with book titles and names. I'm like looking at my bookshelf right now trying to like figure out. Gosh, I can't even think. Like Colleen Hoover's books will make me cry. There was one by this male author, I cannot remember the name for the life of me, that made me cry. And it was very it was similar to, shit, this is how bad I am with names. Is the book title called Do Epic? Is that the title? Do you know that book? I probably got the whole name wrong, but I know that that's a tagline from it. But anyway, let's move on because I can't remember the book titles and the names. But I don't consider, like, I need to read books that pull at my heartstrings. I can read smart. I'm fine with that, but I won't remember it as much as books that, obviously I can't even remember that book that I'm trying to talk about. But, I'm so bad. And the thing is, like, I haven't been reading anywhere near as much the last 2 years because every second that I get, I sort of write. So I don't read as much. So I'm like trying to pull memories from back when I used to read in like 2015, 2016. But no, I can't remember anything. I'm really bad at remembering book titles and character names and stuff.
Do I know, like, I keep saying, like, yeah, your books are, for me, I literally start crying. Like, I remember when I read The Heartache Duet, I was crying from like chapter 1 all towards the end.
Wow,
and then that cliffhanger like killed me. Your cliffhangers always kill me. But do you write certain scenes and you're like, okay, I'm going to make this emotional? Or are you emotional while you're writing it? Or is that something that just flows while you're writing these scenes?
I'm like the most emotional person I've ever met. Like I can watch a 15-second TikTok and be like in the corner in a fetal position, bawling my eyes out. Like, so I'm very emotional as it is. And when I'm writing certain scenes, I sort of have to gear up to write them. And I tend to write a lot of the emotional scenes like first and then write around that. So yeah, the amount of times like my husband's walked into my office and I'm like at my desk crying while writing, it happens a lot. Yeah.
What scene, and because I'm very curious, because that duet was it was a hard one to read, yet I feel like I grew so much when I read it. For the heartache
The
duet.
heartache duet.
Yes.
Yeah.
What scene for you was the hardest and most emotional to write?
Oh, there were a couple of scenes. There was one where at the end of the first book where Ava's having issues with her mum, and she's like calling Connor, and he's at the basketball court with Karen, and she's like knocking on his door, on his window, and he's not there. That one was really hard to write. And then, you know, the next day when they go to school and Ava's like, where were you last night? And he lies to her and says, you know, I was home at 12 and she was at his door or at his window at 2.
Try not
knocking.
to cry. Because I remember that scene. It is so sad.
Yeah, that was really hard. And like all the scenes where Ava's mum is having a hard time, like those were tough to write. Especially like, you know, towards the end, right before, I'm going to spoil it, but right before they leave, when she's really, really struggling. And yeah, all of those was super, super tough.
How do you come up
And
with
just
these
like,
very emotional scenes though?
oh, I don't know. I think my brain's just wired wrong sometimes. All right. Yeah, I don't really know. I don't know how I come up with them, but yeah, I don't know.
Because there's
sort
this
of, some of
scene.
them are planned and some of them I'm just writing, and then it just flows out of me. Like I don't even expect it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, yeah.
Because there's this scene in the heartache duet, and if people haven't read it, I'm sorry. Like I'm just gonna spoil it a little bit. There's a scene in the heartache duet where they vandalize Ava's house.
Yeah.
And that scene for me, I was like, oh my God, like, and that's why I say, and I've said this before, like, I feel like your books have so much truth to it because, I mean, it's sad to say, but the generation now, or even when I was in like high school, like kids can be mean, like they can really be mean.
Super mean. Yeah.
Yes. So I feel like you add these events that are so real. And I think that's why it hurts so much, because you're like, oh my God, like this could happen. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like,
Yeah.
I think that's why I cry with your books so much, because I think I put myself, and it's weird, and I'm gonna like fast forward a little bit. It's like with the Pieces of Me duet. It's like it felt like you were her. Like
yeah,
you write this duet in a way where you're reading it, but you feel like you're the heroine in this duet.
That's the sweetest that's the best compliment, because that's, you know, that's what I want people to get lost in it and feel like they are those characters. So that's really great. Thank you.
I want to reread the heartache duet. Even I try
I'm
not
actually
to
rereading certain parts of it now, so let's buddy read together.
Yes. Would you, and I'm gonna like, I'm skipping, but it's okay. Like, would you ever write her brother's book?
No.
Really? Why?
No. You and your secondary characters. You like what
I
everyone.
know. Well, because I felt like for him, I'm not gonna lie, at the beginning, he like pissed me off a little bit.
Oh yeah,
it was like,
he's supposed to be like that. Like you're supposed to be like, who is this guy? Like why is he there? And then the more you read about him, the more you kind of fall in love with him. And he was like, out of all my secondary characters, he was like one of the most loved ones. But no, I'm not going to write his book because I feel like I've written his story already in and the ending and everything in the heartache duet. So I don't want to be like, I don't want to rewrite it. Sad.
So what's the most difficult thing about writing characters from the opposite sex?
I feel like I write male POV easier than female POV. And I think it's because I've got 3 boys and a husband, obviously, and I live with them daily, obviously. But I've always had that mindset where I always think that I was like born to be a boy. Because I do like really immature things, like draw dicks on things all the time. Like that's just who I am. And so I've always thought that like it always comes easier to me to write from a male perspective, because I feel like I don't have to put so much, I'm not saying girls are emotional, but I just feel like I don't have to put so much thought in it. Like with guys, it's sort of a lot easier to get their thoughts across, whereas girls can sometimes overthink, and then that overthinking can become like kind of like useless drama. So, and I'm not into like useless, pointless drama. So yeah, I feel like it is hard to switch though. It's hard to, when I'm sitting down to start a new scene or a new chapter, like I spend so much just staring at my computer going, whose point of view am I going to write this from? That's probably the hardest part, is knowing that I have two perspectives and which one is going to bring home the story better.
For your heroines, because I've always, like I said earlier too, I feel like your heroines are some of like the most strongest book heroines I've ever read.
Really?
Like, yes. And it, like for Ava, Mia, Jamie, I feel like you grow so much while you're reading that book. Their books. You grow with them. So how do you come up with these heroines? Because it, like, do you know from the beginning, like, okay, this is how they're gonna start, this is how they end, like how much, like where do you get your inspiration?
The only thing I know before I start writing is their backstory. So I knew, when I was like writing Ava, I knew that she was gonna have a mum in that situation, and I hadn't planned on writing that she had Trevor in her life until right before I started writing it. But yeah, so that's all I kind of knew from her. I didn't have like her personality traits or anything. I just have their backstory, and then I have their personality try to match it to whichever hero I set them up with. But yeah, so Ava had her backstory. Mia kind of took me on a ride without me really knowing. Like I knew that she'd have like an eating disorder, but not to the extent that I had written it. And Jamie, all I had was that she had lost her mum to alcoholism, and that was it. Like those are the only things that I have of those people before I actually sit down and start writing them, and then everything comes out as I write.
So what's a trope that you want to write and you haven't written yet?
Oh my goodness. I actually saw this question on your Instagram post, and I was like, I should really think about this before I do this recording, so that I wasn't going to sit here like, oh, and I'm doing that right now. I'm writing one at the moment that is definitely going to challenge me, that I haven't written before. So, but I'm not going to tell you what it is. And then I've kind of done a little bit of everything. I do at some point want to I want to try, I don't know if I can, but it's not really a trope, but I want to get out of the new adult genre and just try to write contemporary. Like I'd like to do an office romance with like, people in their late 20s or early 30s, but I don't think I'll be able to do it because my mind is just I feel like it's too immature to think like a normal person that age. I don't know. But I want to try that. That'd be good. And I did release a rom-com that I've now unpublished, that was like super popular when it was published, but I probably want to do that again, try a rom-com. Yeah.
Now I really want to read that rom-com.
Oh, it's like, it was okay at the time. I think I published it in 2014, and it was like the first book I released that hit Amazon top 100. And it was kind of like, it was a joke because in my reader group, I posted in my reader group that I said to my husband, I want to like write a book about a bunch of college frat boys who start an escort service for MILFs. And he was like, whatever. And I posted about it in my group and people were like, write it. So I just sat down one week and I wrote, like, it's only a novella. And I wrote it and I was like, yeah, I'm just going to publish it just for fun. And it, like, I don't know what happened, but it took off. But it was 2014, so it was a different time and you could get away with saying certain things and it not being like, it is quite politically incorrect. And so so I had to unpublish it because I was like, this isn't, I don't want my readers who are reading my angsty, emotional, heartbreaking books to then go to that and be like, what the hell is this? So yeah, it's unpublished.
It's so funny because I used to say that Leo and Mia were my favorite couple of yours. Then you wrote this duet, the Pieces duet, and that changed, like did a whole 180. So which of all the like couples that you've written, which one's your favorite?
It changes often. One that has stuck with me is from the More Than series, like the first series that I ever wrote. Dylan and Riley, they're from the 5th book, so they're the last couple in that book. They stuck with me. And Connor and Ava, yeah, probably those two. Oh, and Josh and Becca from the KeepPushing Coach duet.
That one was really good.
Yeah.
I reread that one last year.
You only read it last year?
I reread it last year.
Oh, okay.
Because I was like reorganizing my shelf. And I remember because I got the special cover that you did when you came to Book Bonanza. I was like, oh, I should reread it. I was like, I haven't read it in the paperback form.
Yeah.
So I was like, let me read it. And I read it. I was like, oh, I forgot how much I missed them.
Yeah, I miss them. Like, it's weird, but there are sometimes I think about the characters that I made. I'm like, well, I wonder where they'd be right now. It's like, well, you can write it and then you'd know. So they're definitely a couple that I think about, all these years later. I think I wrote that in 2015. So, 7 years later, and I'm still wondering about them and thinking about them. But yeah, I'd probably say Josh and Becca out of all of them.
I want to read the combative. I think that's how you say it. Remember I told you last time, I was like, I want to read it. I want to read more of your
you're
books.
like, it's on my shelf. That is a passion project, one for myself. So I had a cover designer that was like, hey, do you want this cover for free? And I was like, okay. And so I was like, well, I better write a story to suit the cover. So I did that. And then it was always like, because it's sort of like, it was back when MMA was massive and people were doing all MMA books. So the first one is like that, and then it turns into like organized crime, mafia, like kidnapping and all this other stuff. So if you're into that stuff, then like I said, the first book is a bit but the second and third book are really good. So I'm really proud of that story, even though like it's not as popular as my new adult ones. I think you should read it. I think you'd like it. I think you'd like the second and third books, definitely.
Well, I'm excited to read it, and I'm definitely going to read it. And with you saying that, do you usually get your covers made before you like write your books, or do you have your books ready before you do the covers?
I used to have to book in covers, I'd sort of do it as I went, because sometimes you get a cover designer and you have to book like 2 months in advance. And I'm like, I don't really know what book I'm going to be writing in that time. But since I've started working with Mary from Books and Moods, I just send her the book and it's rough drafts. And I'm like, find something that suits this story. And she'll have something done, right away. So that saves me like one step. But I used to have to book and wait 2 months in advance, and then I'd be like, I don't even know what book I'm writing at the moment. And with Mary, because she's read all my books, she knows my style and she knows what will work like in the current market. So that's a win for me.
And she did the special edition for the Pieces Duet, right?
We actually, that was the original cover.
Really?
So I told her I wanted an illustrated cover, and I gave her like a sort of like a quick rundown. I was just like, puzzle pieces and flower drawings, like that's what I want. And she made this, and then as I was writing it, I was like, I don't know if this will sell well in a standard market. Like, I think they'll do better as alternate covers. So then she created the original covers. Like I said, she read them and then she was like, this is what I think suits it. And I was like, hell yeah. So she started that cover in September 2020 for the alternate cover, because that's how long I've been writing this duet. So we've been sitting on that for so long, and I'm so excited to share it.
I'm so excited to get it. I'm supposed to get it Monday.
So you're getting the paperbacks?
Yes, because the hardcover wouldn't arrive until a month from now.
Yeah, I think someone posted it and it was like February 20th by the time I get it.
So I was like, no,
I couldn't wait.
No, I'm getting the paperback.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because I introduced my younger sister, I always say little sister, but she's 19, to your books, and she read the Pieces Duet, and I told her this morning, because we went out for breakfast, I was like, Jay took out some like special edition covers. She literally went on there and ordered them. She's like obsessed with your books too. I think she's supposed to be reading the Heartache Duet soon. I was like, you need to read it.
Love it. That's so cool.
She ordered the special edition covers for the Preston brothers.
Oh yeah.
But she ordered the paperbacks. I was so mad. I was like, how is it you got them before me? And because I ordered the hardbacks. I was so mad. I was like, nope.
Those covers are super cute. The Preston brothers ones, super cute.
I get them this following week.
Finally. Yay. I think there's only one other person who's gotten them in hardbacks already that I know of, that's posted about it. So that's exciting. Send me a picture when you get them, because I can't order hardbacks now.
Really?
What's that? We're talking the same. Like I can order from Amazon, but I can't order hardbacks, or I can, but they come from the US. So I'm dealing with a local printer now that hopefully, it sucks, like you have these books and you have new covers and you're so excited to see them, but you can't actually like get your hands on them. That's frustrating.
I know. Yeah, I saw that post of the reader who got her hardbacks. I was like, I'm not jealous. I'm not.
That's funny. Yeah, she messaged me on Instagram and was like, I just got the hardbacks. And I'm like, send me pictures right now. So she sent like so good. And hardbacks smell better too. I don't know if that's just a me thing, like if everyone goes around sniffing books, but I love the smell of hardbacks. Like it's the glue or something that they use. It's so nice.
And they're just so nice to have. I love hardbacks.
Yeah.
But they take forever to ship. So that's why this time around I ordered paperbacks.
Yeah, I don't know if they still do them by hand. I don't know if that's why it takes so long, because I've never seen like hardbacks manufactured like in a production line, but at a smaller place that I follow on Instagram, and I watch them just make books. I don't know if that's the thing that's normal, but they still do it by hand. It's so strange to me. Like there's no machinery that does it. So I think that's why it takes a long time.
All right. So I know we spoke a little bit about the Heartache Duet, and then you also mentioned how you first develop your stories and everything. But let's talk a little bit about that duet. How was it? You explained a little bit how you came up with Ava and how what she was going to go through, but how did you come up like with her mom? Like I know her mom and plus then Connor. How did you come up with that whole storyline? And
Yeah. Well, Ava, I had her background, I had a history. The first chapter I actually wrote like a year or a year and a half before I started writing it. Hang on, when was 2019 Heartache Duet was released? I'm trying to think when Logan was released 2016. So it was like 3 years earlier that I wrote that first the prologue for it, where she's like sitting, she's like 15 years old and she's sitting at a party and she's like just being a normal kid, and then she gets a phone call, blah blah blah. That scene I actually wrote 3 years earlier, and it was supposed to be, like I said, Ava and Leo was supposed to be together. So while I was trying to write Leo, I wrote that scene, and they didn't work together, so I just put that whole thing aside. And then when I'm starting to write new books, I go through like all my deleted scenes and notes, and that one just sort of hit, and I was like, I think I can make this work. So I created Connor to go with Ava. I knew that Ava was going to be like the main character for the whole thing, and so I wrote Connor to go with her, and I just wanted a different kind of jock. Like, there's so many high school jocks that are like players and just dicks, and I sort of wanted like a nice guy that was shy, and he's a virgin as well. I just wanted something different for this particular book. So yeah, he was quite easy to come up with and awkward, and it's just, I don't know, Connor's cute. Like, he's cute. I want to hug him, you know.
I want to hug her. Like, it felt, I think that duet, there were times when she would like have to, she didn't have a teenage life, like you could say, because everything was take care of mom. She's responsible for mom. Like, mom
so
comes
much
first
to take on.
So how was it that, because if you, towards the end of that duet, we see like I forgot her brother's name. What's her brother's name?
Trevor, I think.
No, Trevor's the other one.
No, Trevor's her brother's name, isn't it? I'm really bad with names. Sometimes I get emails like, will you write a book about this? And I'm like, who is that? I don't even know who that person is. I have to ask my team, who's this guy?
But no, we see him. So we see him take a big step on helping her like navigate with the issue with the mom. Do your scenes come as you write them?
Yeah, so the most I plot is like 3 chapters ahead. I can't waste hours of my writing time plotting the entire book, because I know that I'll change it, you know, a couple of chapters down the road and go a completely different direction. Yeah, I can't plot out and plan for things. It's whatever comes out of me when I'm sitting down and actually writing it.
You write magic.
Oh, thank you. You're so sweet.
So will there be any more books in the Preston Brothers series?
I have plans to write, because at the moment we're up to the twins as far as age goes. So I have plans to write those 2 books, because in Mia they are I think they're 17 or 18 in that story, so I can do that. Everyone wants the last brothers book, like little Lachlan, but at the moment he's like, I want to say like 12 or 13 in the timeline that we're at the moment. So I haven't really thought about him any older. So I'll see how we go in the twins books, and then decide if by then and that timeline, if he's grown enough in my mind that I can write his own book. But it's like, I write him at 18, and I think the oldest brother will be like 30. So I don't know if it's really gonna, you know, if it's gonna go well together. I don't know.
I remember that series. I remember that.
Sorry?
I'm so excited. I'm so excited for the twins.
The twins, yeah. So I've already got one girl planned for one of the twins. I haven't decided which. Like, I know in my mind their personalities are very different, and I know I know the differences between them and how I can sort of build a world or a story around them, but I just don't know with the girl that I've got in mind for them.
When I read Leo, and it's funny because I read Leo first, and then after I finished Leo, I went back and read the other 2 books.
Okay, yeah, a lot of people did that. Like, so many people did that.
Yes, because the Leo's cover is so, I loved it. So I was like, and I think it came up on, I don't know if it was Facebook or Instagram, and I saw the cover and I loved it. So I was like, let me pick it up. I read it. I remember crying. I cried. Surprise. And then I went and picked up both of them. But it's funny because when we read Leo and then I read the first Pieces of You, I pictured Holden so different in Leo's book than he was in his own book. Yeah. So what point in writing Leo's book did you say, okay, I'm going to write Holden's book next?
It was probably like a month after I released Leo, and I just could not get Holden out of my head. Like, he was like, I have this thing where I'm like, characters speak to me when I'm like sitting down and not writing, and whoever is speaking to me the loudest, that's who I'll end up writing that night. But yeah, Holden would just not get out of my head. And it's funny that you say that, because I went through and read some reviews. I never read reviews, so I don't know why I did for Pieces of You, but one of the, not negative, but one of the less stellar reviews was like, what happened to Holden? Like, he was this person in Leo, and then he completely changed. But then we only saw Holden in Leo pre everything coming out with Mia. Mm-hmm. We only saw little tiny bits of him after, I'm going to spoil it, but after Benny was born, we only saw like the cool uncle side of him. Mm-hmm. So we never got to see him right after what happened with Mia, like when her eating disorder and stuff came out. And I think if you're best friends with someone and you've known each other since you're like 3 years old and you've grown up and you're basically brother and sister, I think something like that coming out would really affect you, especially as a character like Holden, who's very protective and very like, he's still strong, because someone was like, Holden's weak or whatever. Like, he's still strong, but I think that can really change your perspective on the world and on life. Like, if he's, you know, going to blame himself for not being there for her and not noticing the changes that were happening in her, or like, you know, throughout that book, he was more like blaming her for the changes that she was making to her life and her body and all this stuff. Like, he didn't realize how deep it went. So yeah, I think that change, the change from Holden in Leo and Holden in the Pieces duet, was definitely necessary, because I don't think that you could just continue on with your life as if, you know, nothing's happened and be the same after that.
So diving into the Pieces duet, that book to me was very, it felt so raw, to put it that way. It felt so deep. And like I said, it felt like when I was reading this book, and it felt like I was walking in Jamie's footsteps. Like, I was experiencing, feeling, seeing, and like everything she was. So how was it writing that duet? I know there was, like, I feel like book 1 and book 2 are different. It's like book 1 is more of a, okay, let's tell you about these 2 characters. And then book 2 is like, let's dive into how they really are.
Yeah. That's exactly what it is. So book 1 was, I'm going to be honest, book 1 was like, I was writing it and I was like, how deep do I want to go in this? And I was doing some market research for that book, to be honest. I was like, what if I wrote characters that just, like, they're just 2 kids in high school and they bone, and then they kind of have something that happens that tears them apart. Like that's a standard plot, you know? And I was like, what if I just write that? Like, I wonder how well it'll be received, because I think while I was writing it, I was seeing like a bunch of like college or high school age books where there wasn't as much angst that I write and as much emotion. So I was like, maybe this is what people want now, like less of that. So I wrote it, and it did well. It didn't do as well as I'd hoped, but it did well. And then by the time that I was writing the second book, I was like, I'm just going to throw every single piece of me. See what I did there? I'm just going to throw everything that I have into this second book to make up for the first book. Like, if that makes sense, make up all the emotions of the first book. Because I don't think I brought out the emotions until about 80% in the first book. So I wanted the second book to really just hit all those marks, which I'm hoping it did. I'm pretty sure it did. But yeah, definitely very different books. And also because they're set in different areas, like they're 5 years apart. So you have the first book, which is, you know, in high school, where the emotions are confused and stuff like that. And then 5 years later, people grow up, and then they make, you know, more sense out of out of everything that happens. So there's definitely more to talk about and more to feel in the second book.
And I like that you said that, because there's a scene in the second book between Jamie and Holden where when she tells him, like, you know, we were kids back then and now we grow up. So
yeah,
I love that you said that, because it does feel, and it feels like you're growing with them.
Yeah, I love, that's what I want. Yeah, which is, you know, like I said, 5 years can really, it can change so much, and especially the 5 years that Jamie's gone through. I mean, Holden, he went to college, he did that, the same thing that a lot of people, that's the path that a lot of people take. But with Jamie, she just went on a completely different path, which, yeah, that's growth.
Yes, I love her so much. Protect Jamie at all costs.
So which scene of Holden and Jamie was the most emotional and or hardest to write?
There's a couple. There's a scene where they go to a party and stuff happens, and then they're in the car afterwards, and Jamie tells Holden where she's been the past 5 years. Like, that was really emotional. And then there's a scene where right before she leaves, where she knocks on his door and and something happens. That was hard to write. And then also towards the end, where she pretty much relives what happened that made her leave 5 years ago. That was really hard to write. And all those scenes, I'd sort of prepared myself. I'd written them earlier, or just like written the dialogue earlier, because I was preparing myself. It was scenes that just never really left my mind as I was writing it. So I had to like get it all out of my system. So I was prepared for it.
I love that little scene. And it's like a scene for like a second. You mention it once and then we don't go back to it. But whenever there's that eye contact scene between Jamie and Big H, and Maggie's like, come on, let's give him a moment. I'm like, oh, that is the most heart-touching scene.
Oh, yeah. Really?
Like, I love that scene, because I know that she makes a comment when they meet. I think it's at a barn, or where he like built something for her. And she makes a comment where she's like, you know, this is what I needed. I needed to feel like it wasn't my fault. So I'm just like, oh, she like finally has people.
Do you want to hear something that's really personal and sad? I wrote Big H based on my late father-in-law, so my husband's dad. And he used to come over to our house every weekend or every second weekend. Before we built this one, we had a house that was sort of falling apart, and it was supposed to be a fixer-upper, so we were going to do it up. And he used to come over every weekend and help fix certain things around the house. And he bought me, one day he came over and he bought me like a pink tool bag with like pink tools and a pink hammer and all these pink
I love
things.
that.
And so I wrote it into the book, and I remember it was just like, it was such a nice feeling to give that little part of him to this story. Like, he's very much written. I didn't realize it until I was talking to my editor about it. I didn't realize that that's who Big H was to me. So anyway,
I love that. So I know that you mentioned it earlier, how you like to go through your deleted scenes sometimes to see for books.
What were?
Is there any deleted scenes for this duet?
Just a couple of lame ones, mainly with Maggie being just funny. And there's one scene that I wrote where they're like leaving Holden's parents' house, and Maggie like pretends to be passed out drunk just so she can leave because Holden's stepdad's so boring or something. I can't remember how it went, but it was just like that was a deleted scene that I didn't put into the book. But most of it is just like just little bits and pieces, none that I could sort of reuse for anything.
Mm-hmm.
But with the Pieces duet, I wrote that. Okay, so with the Pieces duet, I wrote it, and I wrote like the first 12 to 15,000 words of it. And then I was like, I don't really like where this story is going. So I put it away for like 6 months, I think, and I didn't pick it up again. And then when I went to start writing it again, I had it on I was going through my Kindle, I think, and I was just like, what can I read? And then I saw that I'd sent it to my Kindle, and I started reading it. I was like, this is actually really good. And I got to the last page and I'm like, what? Where's more of it? And I'm like trying to flick through my Kindle going, where's the rest of this story? And I was like, oh great, now I have to write it. So I'd written 3 different versions of Pieces of You before I went back and read that one. I was like, hey, actually, this is pretty good. So I'll continue to write that one. But that would have been like, I would have saved those chapters for another couple at another stage if I didn't use them for them.
I love that. Will we ever get that Maggie scene though?
Oh, it's so small. It's like 200 words. It's just the dumbest thing. And it's like shitting on Elon Musk. I don't even know what I was writing. I think it's like 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, oh, this will be funny. Let's make fun of the guy who created Tesla and SpaceX. Like, what? So, yeah. I mean, I'll post it in my group if you want to see it. But it's so, yes. I'll just send it to you. I'll DM it to you. It's
yes,
so
I want to read it.
Okay.
So what's next for you in 2022?
So I have a couple of, I'm doing a standalone now. Because when I write duets or a book in a series, I sort of want to just step away from that world for a little bit. So I don't want to continue with anything that's already being done. So I've got a standalone that I'm writing at the moment. And then I've been promising for ages to continue the More Than series, which is like my first and most popular series. So they started like senior year of high school, and then it went just like a year or so after college, those original books. And now I'm doing like, not next gen, but I'm doing like the adult years where they sort of have to deal with all that stuff. So I'm going to write 1 or 2 of those this year. These are all plans that who knows if we go back into lockdown in Victoria, then my kids are home and I can't get much done when they're home. So so there's that. And I want to write at least 1 Preston brother book. So a standalone, 1 or 2 books in the More Than series and a book in the Preston Brothers series. And then I don't know, if I have time, I'd love to do like another standalone for maybe I'll try something different, a trope that people want me to try, just so I can challenge myself and see if I can do it.
You can do it.
I can try.
All right. So before we let you go, we wanted to do this game with you. That is
gosh.
what we call is how well do you know your books?
Oh no. No, okay.
So we're gonna read a small quote and then you're gonna tell us if you know which book it's from.
Oh no, I can't even remember my characters' names. What? Okay, let's try.
Okay. The first quote: be careful with your heart, guard it, and if you feel the need to be reckless, make sure you are the one making that choice.
That's Lucas.
Yes.
Yeah. His mom said that. Yep. Okay, I'm winning so far. Can we stop playing now?
The second one: all I needed was for someone to hug me, to hold me, to tell me that everything will be okay.
That's Pieces of Me.
Yes.
Yeah.
The third one: we find peace in each other's arms, find solace in each other's touch, and find a home in each other's hearts, even if the space is limited.
The Heartache Duet, one of those books.
But
yay!
But which book?
They only start to like have sexy times in the second book. So First and Forever, I'm guessing. No?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yay.
Okay, the fourth quote.
I'm doing a lot better.
There's no emotion greater than fear, no ache greater than grief, no sound greater than silence.
That's more than enough.
Yes, you're actually doing really good.
I'm doing so well.
Please be patient with me because I really don't want to let go of this. And I don't want to let go of you.
I have no idea. I wrote that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You don't want to even guess it?
I wouldn't have a clue. I don't want to go, nah, no clue.
Kick, push.
Okay.
Okay.
The last one. I still don't remember writing it. Okay.
The last one: I stare at her right into her eyes, and I can see all the broken fragments of a girl who refuses to see her worth.
I want to say Pieces of You, but
yes,
it is okay. Good.
Yes.
Yay! So I only got one wrong.
You only got one wrong. See, you did it. Well, thank you so much, Jay, for talking to us today. It was so much fun, and seriously, it was such an honor. I love you. I love your books, and I am so excited.
We can Zoom anytime now. I've gotten like the whole setup. I downloaded the app. I did it all.
I'm gonna be like, whenever I read your new book, I'm gonna have you on Zoom while I'm reading, so you can see me crying.
I'm down. Let's do it.
Well, I hope you have an amazing day. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. What an honor. That was
You're
fun.
welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Thank you so much, Jay. I love her. I love her so much. I love her book so much. And like I told her, I just love her heroines like so fiercely. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that her heroines are literally like the strongest heroines I've ever read. And it's crazy because I love reading, but it's like with her books, it feels like you're growing when the characters are growing. So it's like you go in this journey, and it's seriously such an epic and unforgettable journey. If you haven't picked up her books, if you haven't picked up the Pieces Duet, please do it now. Do it now. It is so good. I am so excited for everything that's to come. I really like, I keep telling her I want Connor's, I think it's, no, Colton's book. I confused it with Connor. I really want Colton's book, but she said no. But I'm never going to lose hope because he seems broken to me. But I love her books. And please just go ahead and pick up this duet. Pick up any of her books. The 𝐅𝐸𝐥𝐥𝐥𝐥 duet is really, really, really good. And I have 𝐼𝐸𝐥𝐥𝐥𝐥 due. And you know what? I'm going to read the 𝐅𝐸𝐥𝐥𝐥𝐥 duet this weekend. That's what I'm going to do tonight, because talking about it, it makes me like relive those moments. And I'm like,
yeah,
I want to hurt today. I want to hurt. I want to cry. I'm going to read it. But it's like, you're going to cry. But I've always said this, like, if a book makes me cry, that makes the book unforgettable, and it makes the book one of my favorites.
Yeah.
So definitely pick it up. And again, thank you so much, Jay, for joining us today. It was truly an honor. And if you guys don't yet, please follow her on Instagram. Her handle is Jay McLean Author. That way you don't miss out on her new book news or any updates. Like we talked about a little earlier, she did take out some special edition covers. Check them out. They're gorgeous. They're on her Instagram. And then if you have any questions for us, let us know. Our handle is @BookBuzzPodcast. And we actually have another author interview coming next week.
Yes.
And it's so funny. When me and Ping were talking about it yesterday, we said we were going to not limit our author interviews, but we're going to spread them out a little bit more.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, we have, I think, 3 or 4 next like authors back to back.
Yeah.
So that's going to be amazing. So be tuning in, and thank you so much. We're almost to our 1-year anniversary.
Yes.
That's crazy. We might be having a very special giveaway. So keep an eye on our Instagram. And I do want to make you guys aware, we did announce the winner of the This Man giveaway. Thank you so much for everyone who entered. And again, if you guys have any questions for us, just let us know. But we hope you guys have an amazing week. We hope you guys read a lot of amazing books. And we'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.